to see the teddy bear are here to play. If you don't come play with us, then we will kill you.
So this next story is kind of a special one. I actually wrote it when I was in school for this magazine book thing we had every year, and my story actually got in. Actually, two of my stories got in, which is pretty cool, but the other one isn't nearly as spooky and unsettling as this one. But yeah, the story got published in a magazine, then put in a book at my school, and now it's going to be there for years to come, which is pretty cool. But it's a spin on the classic fairy tale Snow White, and it is called Chef White. And I hope you guys enjoy. And happy Halloween! Once upon a time, in some city somewhere, there was this girl. Her name was Margaret, and she lived with her mom and dad. Since she was a little girl, her dad taught her to cook, and Margaret loved it. She loved cooking and baking, and she loved working at her father's restaurant, and she loved making soup when her mother was sick, and she loved baking sweets to cheer up her father after her mom died, and she loved it when she made the wedding cake for her father's wedding. But she did not like it when her stepmom criticized her food, and she didn't like it when her stepmom put strange ingredients in her food to make it taste awful, and then claimed she was trying to poison them, and she didn't like it when her stepmom forced her to clean the whole house, and she didn't like it when her stepmom made her a dishwasher instead of a chef at her father's restaurant. And she really didn't like it when the only time she let her cook was when she made the food for her father's funeral. And Margaret really hated it when, after her father passed, her stepmom made fun of her and started calling her Snow White because of her pale skin. Snow White had had enough. She was no longer going to let her stepmom make fun of her. She refused to be treated like this. She knew that the restaurant wasn't going to survive without her, and she also knew that her mom wasn't going to come begging for her back. So she left and didn't look back. However, her mom had other plans. "Mirror, mirror on the wall," the mother said, logging onto her phone, "show me who is the fairest of them all." A little red dot appeared where Snow White was located. The wonderful new app, Mirror Mirror, was capable of showing you where anyone was at that time, as long as they had their phone on them. "Jack!" the woman cried. A man in a nice suit quickly ran into the room. "Yes, ma'am?" he asked. "Follow Snow White," the woman responded, showing the butler the phone, "and do whatever it takes to get rid of her." "Whatever it takes, James." "Geoffrey," the butler said. "What?" the woman questioned. "My name. It's Geoffrey." Yes, whatever, Jason. Just get going." The woman gave him a dismissive wave. Geoffrey sighed. This is why everyone called her the evil boss. Geoffrey followed the little red dot until he finally caught up with Snow White. She had gotten lost in the city alleyways and had no idea where she was. She thought she could make it out on her own, but she couldn't. All she had was her cooking skills that she couldn't even use now. She sat in a dark corner and cried. Geoffrey felt pity for her. He had watched Snow White grow up with such a lovely childhood, but the evil boss had ruined everything for her. How could he make it worse by ending her career here? "Snow?" Geoffrey said, revealing himself. Snow looked up through tears. "Geoffrey? What are you doing here?" she asked. "Your mother has asked me to hunt you down, but I can't do it." Snow White was confused. Did her stepmom really hate her that much? "Go to this address. You'll get help there," Geoffrey said, handing Snow White a piece of paper. Snow White took the paper gratefully and quickly went on her way. Geoffrey knew he had to bring proof to the evil boss that he had finished her off. But what can he do? His eyes glanced towards a nearby convenience store. Snow followed the address to a small, dinky apartment complex downtown. Her mouth was agape as she stared at the crumbling building. A small flashing sign that read "No Vacancy" hung above her head. The sounds of distant sirens and barking dogs sung through the air. This did not look like the place Snow could get help. Nonetheless, with nowhere else to go, Snow White climbed the stairs and found the door that read 21. When she found it, she reluctantly knocked. As her knuckles hit the wood, however, the door opened. Snow hesitated, then stepped into the apartment. "Hello?" she called out as she stepped in. No response. Snow glanced around. There was a small living room and a doorway on the other side of the room, which Snow could tell led to a kitchen. There was a hallway off to the right she couldn't see down. Snow hesitantly walked into the room, pulling a look of disgust as she did. Once she stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind her and the lights flicked on. 7 small figures jumped out from strange hiding places and gathered around Snow, who looked at them all surprised. 7 dwarfs surrounded around her, each of them wearing a sweatshirt that had a horrible stitching job on it. The stitches all formed a name. They read Bashful, Doc, Grumpy, Happy, Sneezy, Sleepy, and Dopey. "And who might you be?" Grumpy asked in an angry voice, wielding a baseball bat in his hands. "Well, now don't be like that. She's a guest," Happy exclaimed, giving Snow White a reassuring nod. "Yeah, you don't have to be so—" Sneezy started, but he didn't get to finish as he suddenly took a deep breath. Dopey quickly put a finger under Sneezy's nose, what stopped him. Sneezy sighed. "Thanks, Dopey. That was really—" Sneezy stopped again as he sneezed loudly. Everyone groaned and took a step back from him. "Sorry," he said, rubbing a finger under his nose. "Allergies." "As I was saying," Grumpy said, "who are you?" "My name is Snow White," Snow finally spoke. "My friend Geoffrey sent me here." "Geoffrey!" the dwarfs exclaimed in union. "Well, why didn't you say so?" Doc said as he grabbed hold of Snow's hand and shook it violently. "Welcome home." Meanwhile, the evil boss was waiting impatiently in her room. She was staring at her Mirror app, which seemed to have been broken. The little red dot had suddenly stopped moving and hadn't started up again. The evil boss tapped her foot against the floor. "Miss?" Geoffrey called as he entered the room. "Ah, Jacob, you're back!" the evil boss exclaimed as she stomped over to him. "Geoffrey," he corrected under his breath. "Have you done it?" the evil boss asked eagerly, ignoring Geoffrey's remark. Geoffrey hesitated, then pulled out a chef knife from his suit jacket. The evil boss took it quickly, recognizing it immediately. It was Snow's! "I can't believe it! You did it! You killed her! You... The evil boss paused as she studied the knife. The blade was still perfectly sharp, and there was no stain or scratches on the blade or handle. The evil boss turned the handle over. Her eyes narrowed in anger and disgust. "Liar!" she screamed as she turned back to Geoffrey. "This isn't Snow's chef knife. Hers has her father's name carved into it. This is a fake." The evil boss threw the knife at Geoffrey, who barely managed to dodge the blade. It stuck into the wall behind him. He stood up and looked at the evil boss with wide eyes. "If I can't have her heart," the evil boss hissed as she stalked closer, "then I'll have yours." "Your mother did all that?" Happy asked in disbelief. Snow nodded, holding tight to the paper plate that still had an uneven piece of pizza on it. "Wow, I'm very sorry for you," Bashful said quietly. "Oh, big whoop," Grumpy said. Everyone turned to him. "We all have had a bad life. You ain't nothing special, princess." Snow looked away, biting her lip. Just then Sneezy walked in with drinks. "Hot cocoa, any, ah, ah, ah." Everyone tensed as they watched Sneezy balance a tray of overfilled mugs. Sneezy paused, holding his breath. After a moment he sighed. Everyone else sighed in return. "Achoo!" Everyone groaned as Sneezy spilled all the drinks onto the carpeted floor. "Sleepy had the right idea to go to bed early," Bashful said quietly, standing up and heading down the hallway. A moment later, a door slammed shut. "I'm with Bashful on this one. Good night," Happy said, following Bashful's actions. "Way to go, genius," Grumpy insulted as he too walked to the hallway. One by one, all the doors went down the hall, entered a room, and slammed the door shut. Snow stood. "Do you want help cleaning up?" she asked, having gotten used to cleaning up after her stepmother. No, that's all right," Sneezy said. "I've gotten used to cleaning up my messes. You can go to bed. There's a spare room at the end of the hallway." Snow nodded, then headed down the hall. Sneezy sighed and looked at the chocolatey mess. Then he sneezed again. A distant "bless you" sounded from somewhere. The evil boss stalked down the hall, her heels clicking on the marble floor. The new information she gained gave her a new bright idea. She stopped by the kitchen to drop off a freshly cleaned knife and grab an apple. Then she made her way to the basement. When she reached the basement door, she paused to pull out a bone key and unlock the heavy wooden door. After a satisfying click, the evil boss opened the door and stepped inside the cold room. The room was decorated with beakers and tubes and chemicals. The evil boss sat the apple down on a nearby table, a smirk on her face. Time to enact her plan. The next morning, the 7 dwarfs woke up to the smell of cooking bacon. One by one, they trailed out of the room and into the kitchen. As they went, they took note of their clean apartment. All the garbage had been cleaned up, all the stains removed, and everything was in its proper and organized place. The dwarfs were even more stunned when they entered the kitchen to see Snow White cooking breakfast. "Good morning," she sang as they entered the small kitchen. "Wow, it smells so good it could wake up Sleepy," Doc exclaimed, looking over the piles of breakfast foods. "Yeah, right," Grumpy grumbled. "Nothing can wake up Sleepy." Just then, Sleepy walked into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes and yawning. "Mornin'," he said. "What smells so good?" All the dwarfs looked at Sleepy with wide eyes, then turned to Snow, who gave them a small smile. She held up a pan with cooking bacon on it. "Hungry, anyone?" That morning, all the dwarfs ate the best breakfast they ever had. Then, reluctantly, they left for work, leaving the apartment in Snow White's good hands. Everyone said their thank yous and goodbyes to Snow before leaving. Grumpy must have been warming up to Snow, because even he said goodbye to her. As the boys headed off to work, Snow decided to bake something sweet. But what could she bake with? She barely had any supplies to cook a simple eggs and bacon breakfast. What did the dwarfs have that she could use? She found sugar and flour, honey and salt, lemons, cinnamon, vanilla, and caramel. Snow's mind whizzed with ideas. She knew just what to make, but she was missing one special ingredient. But she couldn't go to the store to get it. She didn't have any money. And plus, she was kind of supposed to be in hiding. Snow tapped her finger on her cheek, thinking what she could possibly do. Just then, there came a knocking at the door. Snow answered it hesitantly. She was relieved when she saw not a person standing there, but a large basket of apples. There was a little card tied to the top of it that read, "Welcome to the neighborhood." Snow was hesitant. How could someone already know she was here? But she took the basket nonetheless. It contained the last ingredient she needed, a big red apple. She brought the basket into the kitchen and started looking at all the apples, trying to find the perfect one. It wasn't hard to find because it was right on top, the biggest, reddest, sweetest, juiciest apple. She picked it up carefully. It was perfect. Snow put the apple down on a cutting board and was just about to start slicing it up when she paused. Oh, it looked too good. She hesitated. Never before had she seen such a wonderful apple. Just one bite wouldn't hurt, right? Snow White put down the knife and picked up the apple. She brought it to her lips. She opened her mouth and took a big, juicy bite. And just as she did, she glanced over to the basket of apples and the note on top. Snow froze as she looked at the note again. She recognized the handwriting. Snow looked at the apple in her hands, pulling it away from her mouth. But it was too late. Snow began feeling dizzy as she stumbled around the kitchen. Then she fell to the floor, out cold. When the dwarfs finally came home from their long day at work, they were horrified to find Snow White passed out on the kitchen floor. "Quickly, call an ambulance," Doc said after examining Snow. Bashful was on it quickly, whipping out his phone and quickly dialing in 911. The others gathered around Snow worryingly. What could have caused her to pass out like this? Within a few minutes, an ambulance arrived. 2 young men dressed in medical clothing ran into the room. One of them just looked like a typical middle-aged doctor. The other one, though, stuck out like a sore thumb. He looked like your classical Prince Charming types. Blonde hair, blue eyes, and so young-looking, Doc thought he might have a better chance at helping Snow than this guy did. His name tag read Florin. "What happened?" he asked as he got down to Snow White. "We found her like this," Sneezy said. "Just help her already," Grumpy demanded. Florin bent down and examined Snow White. "She's not breathing," Florin exclaimed. "We need an oxygen mask." "We don't have one," the colleague exclaimed nervously. "It broke, remember?" "Oh, what a coincidence," Grumpy mumbled under his breath. Florin looked down at Snow desperately. Then he did the next best thing he could think of. He opened her mouth, leaned down, and began giving her mouth-to-mouth. The 7 dwarfs cringed. Snow White's eyes popped open as her lungs were filled once again. She sat up and coughed. "Are you all right? What happened?" Florin asked. Snow quickly stood. Oh, nothing. I must have just fallen." Florin stood slowly, unsure about this explanation. "Really, I'm fine. Thanks for your help, but it's all good now." Snow pushed the 2 paramedics out the door. "Thank you," she added before slamming the door shut. Snow spun around to face the dwarfs. They all looked back at her with wide eyes. "Well then, what was that all about?" Happy questioned. "Yeah, that was so exciting. I'm wide awake," Seaby started, but his words trailed as he fell asleep. He snored as he fell into the couch. "Are you all right?" Bashful asked shyly. Yes, I'm quite all right," Snow answered as she walked back into the kitchen. She bent down and searched the floor. Are you sure you're okay?" Grumpy asked. "Perhaps she hit her head too hard," Doc whispered. "I'm fine," Snow insisted. Then she found it, the red apple that now had a perfect bite mark in it. Snow held it up. "This is what made me pass out," she exclaimed. Doc took it from her, then began examining the apple as he fixed his glasses. The others gathered around him. Somehow, just by staring at it, Doc was able to find the problem with the apple. "It's been poisoned," he said. Everyone gasped in shock. "It's a good thing we found you when we did," Doc continued, handing the apple back to Snow. "A few minutes later, and we wouldn't have been able to bring you back." Snow stared at the apple for a moment, then turned to the note card on the basket. The curvy handwriting taunted her. "We're going to get revenge," Snow suddenly exclaimed as she spun around. The dwarfs looked at her confused and surprised. "But how are we going to do that?" Happy asked worryingly. "Yes, how are we going to do that?" Grumpy asked darkly. Dopey nodded eagerly. Snow glanced over her shoulder at the baking supplies she had set out. Then she looked at the apple in her hands. She thought for a moment. All she had was her cooking skills. Snow White and the 7 dwarfs all crept closer to Snow Father's restaurant. The outside was covered with balloons and streamers. It was the evil boss's birthday today, and Snow had the perfect plan. Inside, the evil boss was complaining about every little detail. It was too hot. The food was gross. There were too many people. There weren't enough people. All these gifts were stupid. The only good thing that happened today was poisoning and finally getting rid of that wretched Snow. The evil boss sighed in frustration, then stood from her makeshift throne. No one seemed to notice this move. She stormed to the kitchen in search of some decent food. Anger boiled in the evil boss when she saw no chefs inside the kitchen. She felt like screaming until she heard shuffling around nearby. She stormed over to the sound. "It's about time! Where can I get some decent—" The evil boss paused as she rounded the corner. "Snow White?" Snow White spun around, seeming to look devastated at being caught. "What are you doing here?" the evil boss shrieked. "I thought I killed you!" Snow glanced around nervously. The evil boss suddenly smirked, then leaned against the counter. She picked up a pastry that sat nearby and took a bite out of it. "I guess I should have known I couldn't get rid of you so easily," the evil boss said as she chewed. "You always had—" The evil boss paused, her throat suddenly feeling very dry. She cleared her throat and continued. "You always knew how to—" The evil boss paused again. Her throat felt stuffy. She patted her chest and again continued. "But I knew you—" She paused yet again as her throat suddenly started swelling up. She patted her chest and cleared her throat, trying to make the strange feeling go away. She looked up at Snow White with wide eyes. "What's the matter?" Snow asked with a smirk. "Something stuck in your throat?" Snow glanced down at the pastry still in the evil boss's hand. The evil boss looked down at the pie. Apple. The evil boss stumbled backwards, then fell to the floor. She looked up at Snow with tears in her eyes. Then the tears turned to anger. "Why? How?" the evil boss was able to squeak out before her throat became swollen. "Why?" Snow asked with a smirk as she took a few steps closer. "Well, revenge is the short answer. See, I knew you were the one who killed my father. And then you tried killing me. I wasn't going to let you get away with that. How? Well—" Snow glanced over her shoulder, and 7 little dwarfs came out of their hiding spots. "I had some help from a few friends." "You won't get away with this," the evil boss barely was able to croak out. They'll find me." Snow smirked again and took a step closer. "I don't think they will. See, with you gone, I'm now the rightful owner of this restaurant, which means I'm in charge of everything. And I'm thinking about putting a new item on the menu. What do you say, boys?" Snow White lifted a large chef knife with a crazed smile. The 7 dwarfs stalked closer with hungry grins. "Let's get baking, boys." To this day, people say in a small, unknown city, you can find a little restaurant named Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs that sell the best meat pies in all the land. But whatever you do, don't order the apple pie.